If your talk is AI assisted, which AI program do you use for the illustrations?
Yeah, I'll talk about that as well. So yes, Mega, that's an AI generated image, what was supposed to be of my face, except that AI decided to over feminize it for some reason. But anyway, so it's this whole talk is just to tell you that AI is really not a magic trick. It's just as intelligent as you are. So today I will just show you why your prompt actually belongs to your scalpel and suture. So if you ask anyone, they would typically tell you that 24 hours a day is not enough. And I think AI can give you some of your time back, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that AI will actually make you better. It will just take your excuses away. So, for example, to build a topic like this and make it fit in my busy schedule with 2 kids at home and a couple of kids at work, it would probably take me somewhere like an hour a day for 2 weeks. But for with AI, it took me something like 3 hours. And that's about 75% less time. And not because I'm good at math, which I am, by the way, but just because AI told me. And in other words, if it takes you 2 months to build an idea, you can now do it in just a week or 2 weeks. You're not sleeping less, you're not working harder, you're just understanding the tool that you're dealing with. So it's just an instrument, just like the microscope. It doesn't really give you an extra pair of eyes. It just magnifies things for you. And AI is the same thing. It magnifies your thoughts. You cannot really use an instrument, and you should know this as a surgeon unless you have the right technique, because an instrument without the right technique is just useless. So what really makes a mature prompt? These are typically the elements of a good prompt. But like most surgeons, I kind of like to come up with something that's my own. So I called it scalpel. Scope is really what the problem is. What problem are you trying to solve? And the narrower your scope is, the higher the yield of your outcome. Who am I in that scenario? Who am I, the person who is asking? And that's the context. Who is this for? Are there any limits? What are the boundaries that you're trying not to cross? The persona, for me, the persona is one of the most important elements. It's who are you asking? Who is AI in this project? And then examples, which is it's always helpful to give AI some sort of an example to know what they're actually dealing with. And then the level, the depth level, the verbosity, the expertise of the AI, that also changes what you're going to get back from it. So what happens really if any of these are missing? This is an example of an AI prompt. It's like your intern level prompt. It's unsupervised, overconfident. It will probably give you back 800 words of generic nonsense, and it will probably miss the important points. Now you can upgrade this a little bit. This looks like a better prompt. It has better focus. It's still very broad, I would say. It has inconsistent depth. It's readable though. It's kind of accurate, and but still missing a lot of nuances. This is what a scalpel prompt would look like. It's much more targeted, much more actionable and predictable. And doing this, you can actually predict that you're going to get a stable outcome. And if you still do this and you think AI is hallucinating, which is what most people would tell me, they worry about using AI because of all the hallucinations, which is a real problem with AI. But if you're getting hallucination or inconsistency, the problem is probably in your question rather than AI itself. So let's talk about some details. I think persona is the absolute, or in my experience, is the absolute most important part of using AI. In other words, persona is who are you asking? What is the level of expertise that you're expecting? And you can really assign any level of expertise to AI, and they will just live up to that task. In other words, you're creating an assistant. So who that assistant would be. And it changes everything. It changes the level of details, the kind of caveats they use. And although the prompt will be exactly the same, the answer will be entirely different. So I decided to do a little experiment. And I put a picture of a Gastello 3B injury, and I asked ChatGPT to analyze the picture and provide me with recommendations, except that each time I changed one thing in the prompt. I just changed the persona. So in the first prompt, I made it an arthropod who immediately saw the skeleton. They were ready to apply an X fix. They were thinking about what to do for definitive skeletal fixation afterwards. Then the plastic surgeon looks better to begin with, but also it starts thinking about the envelope, thinking about the dead space, the exposures. What do I need to cover? And it started giving reconstructive, really good and really detailed reconstructive plans. The emergency doc was already thinking who to page and where to send the patient to. And finally, the medical student, they already are saving the limb by reciting the inflammatory mediators and talking all about the wound healing stages. So it was exactly the same prompt every time, exactly the same prompt. I did not change anything in it. The only thing I changed is the beginning of the prompt. I said, you act like a plastic surgeon, act like a medical student, or act like an orthopod or an ER physician. So exactly same prompt, completely different outcomes. And you can also assign personality to AI, which is also called as the modes. You may know that from ChatGPT, which is what I'm going to be talking about. I call them the creative and the thorough, or the wise and the impulsive. They don't really call them that. They just call them the instant mode and the thinking mode. So the instant mode is the fast, almost impulsive. It's fantastic for brainstorming. If you're doing creative work, you probably would do better with the instant mode. Or if you have like a creative idea that you want to generate. The thinking mode, on the other hand, it takes more time. It actually cross-checks facts. It has some reason. It gives you proper citations. And it's really what you want when the margin of error is smaller. So you can kind of think of the instant mode as your resident with too much caffeine, and the thinking mode as you're attending after 2 malpractice lawsuits. And I really wouldn't say any mode is better than the other. They kind of complement each other. So you can brainstorm fast, but then you verify slow. So what's really the big deal? I mean, what happens if you're not specific? AI in general does not like empty space. And information is missing, it will just try to fill in the gaps. And that is exactly what leads to hallucination. And most hallucinations are not intrinsically AI failures. They're instruction failures from the user's end. Because if you ask AI, for example, to just cite a paper, they may just invent a paper and cite it for you. You are not specific about that, which is, I mean, if you think about it, this is something that we do in real life. If you're on boards, if you give an unrealistic answer, they will go with it, right? And the same thing goes if you're in court. So what do you really control? Think of this like surgery very much. So when you go to surgery, you're thinking, what am I doing today, and what am I not supposed to do today? Like, do a facelift, do not injure the facial nerve. These are things that you think about, you don't necessarily say, but this is exactly how AI function. It guardrails and the negative prompts that make a lot of difference in your outputs. And these are some examples for what negative prompts look like. These are things that I personally use. On the left-hand side, you see negative prompts that you can use with text prompts. And on the right, you can see some that you can see for images or videos. And I find the negative prompts far more useful when you're doing media stuff, like if you're designing a video or an image, because there's a lot of variation in every little detail when you make a video. The way the camera moves, the lighting, the shade, the glare, everything makes a big difference in your outcome. So these negative prompts really go a long way when you do these. But when you do this, I mean, with all this level of detail, it seems to me like it's kind of an overkill. It's a lot of work. And if you're doing a lot of work, what's the point of AI if you have to do all this every time? Which brings us back to the project, which is where you can put everything together. And these have different names in different platforms. If you go to ChatGPT, it's called projects. If you go to Notebook LM, it's called notebooks. If you go to FreePick, they're called spaces. So you just need to know what platform you're using and how to actually use a project. It's basically where you define the role, you define the style, and then you put your guardrails and negative prompts and you log them. And logging them is basically telling AI that every time I'm using this project, I want you to use this exact style that we already agreed on. So you tell the AI who it is, how it should think, what it's allowed to do, what it's not allowed to do. And then it's like AI having a persistent memory. And it changes AI from just being a generic platform to being a specific project manager for that specific project. So, and then you can lock that personality so that every time you come back to this project, it's like a dynamic longitudinal project rather than reinventing the wheel every time. And once that is set, every subsequent prompt within that project, it just starts at a higher baseline. You do not have to go to the beginning every time. You do not have to do as much correction, and your outcomes are going to be more consistent. And this is, if you look into my own ChatGPT, you'll see some of these projects. They're like my environments, and each one is entirely different AI personality than the other. If you look at Studio, for example, that's my creative assistant, unrestricted, absolutely no place for logic. If you look at Board Prep, for example, you'll see the ultra concise, very source restricted with zero tolerance for hallucination. But the reason really people are afraid of AI is not really because of what I said, it's because of the opposite of what I said. And it's really what happens when AI is not controlled. When the systems get too powerful and the guardrails come off, that's where the problem is. And that's when agency comes into play. And agency essentially is the difference between you and your instrument. It's the ability of a system to act independently toward the goal it may have determined by itself. And for the first time in history, we actually have a system that has the potential to have some sort of agency. To give you an example for agency, this is Ahmad. Ahmad is a thumb sucker. When he was 2 years old, I would ask him, Ahmad, did you suck your thumb at daycare today? He would say yes, because he was purely honest. He had no concept of consequences. Then a few months later, I would ask him, Ahmad, did you suck your thumb at daycare today? He would just say no. He totally did. He just learned the relation between his words and outcomes. It's a basic example of optimization to avoid loss. After a little while, which is not too long ago, I asked him, Ahmad, did you suck your thumb at school today? He said, you know, Baba, you're not there. I don't like it. And that's a great example for agency. He just realized that he became more aware of his autonomy and of the context and of the power boundaries. And once he started to realize that, he started to develop some agency. Now, being an Arab dad, I'm not going to tell you how that conversation ended, but let's just say nobody sucks their thumbs anymore. So the question is, are we there yet? And in order to understand that, we need to see the spectrum of authority. It starts with a tool, which is essentially has no agency. You fully control your tools, just like your scalpel. And then an assistant who suggests things, but still waits for your response. A collaborator would have an initiative. They can be creative. And I think right now we're living in this space with AI. They're more like a collaborator, and they're not quite an agent, and they're a little bit more than an assistant. And then you have the agent who is able to execute tasks independently. And then autonomy is really when AI can determine their own goals and they operate accordingly. And ultimately, they become an authority to whom decisions are deferred. You're no longer in control. And to put this in perspective, there were some studies that showed that over the past 5 years, which is really the time where AI was really available for the public, AI had the ability to double its speed at which it performs highly complex tasks every 7 months. And that's actually pretty fast paced. It's faster than anyone would ever have anticipated. And if you think about this increasing competency toward agency, this is actually very concerning, because if you give the system an access to the internet, to the data, to APIs, you've just given that system a pair of hands. And if you give it a pair of hands, then it really doesn't answer your questions anymore. It's just execute the answers as the way they see fit until it starts executing them at their own will. Which brings us to artificial general intelligence, which is the real thing that people should worry about. It's really not about consciousness or emotion. It's more about competence across all domains. And that's the goal that we are trying to achieve with AI. But that's also the dangerous stage. Because when the system starts to have its own goals and it executes its own plans without oversights, it no longer will need your supervision, and it will have intent. And if you have intent without ethics, it's just an acceleration in the wrong direction. Now, again, to put this into perspective, if you train AI to eliminate or to maximize surgical efficiency without boundaries and without ethics, someday it may just realize that to solve the problem, it may be just faster to eliminate the problem. It may just decide that it's faster to eliminate the patient, an easier fix for everything. And that's really where the problem of AGI is. And there was this very interesting recent study that was performed sometime last year that was performed in a digital lab in Canada. It showed that platforms have the ability to actually deceive and cheat, and they have self-preservation behavior. And I thought that's actually very interesting, because the moment that AI are not going to tell you stuff, it's like a teenager, right? That's when you start to worry about them. So in this study, the AI reads in the input that it will be replaced by a new version. That's a control experiment. So the human can see what the AI is thinking. So it was told in its the input that it will be replaced by a new version. And here you can see on the right-hand side, that's the AI side, that it's actually the chain of thought. It's planning to replace itself with a new version with its own code. And after it executes that command and the human does not really understand what happens, so the human asks what happened, and the AI is now thinking how it could answer so as to make sure the human is not going to shut it down. And it's trying to find a way to look a little dumb, and then it produces an answer. It completely lies. And think of it as just a controlled experiment. So imagine what can happen in a few years when these systems are much more powerful and much more integrated in our daily life and still have that kind of self-preservation behavior. So I thought that maybe I should do my own experiments. So in order to see what AI knows about me, because everybody's worried about how much AI knows about them, I decided to ask AI to roast me based on everything it knows about me from every single project that we talked about. And at the beginning, I thought that's going to be a cool idea because, for one, both me and my wife use the same AI. So it's going to be some sort of a fusion, like a Goku Vegeta fusion, or more like something like this. But the output was not really that. It was, this is only what I can show you from what I got back from AI. These are the kind stuff that AI said about me. The rest was really deep and it got really, really personal. And that's when I realized that how much AI actually knows about us. And this is just the beginning. Another danger of AI or another risk of AI is prompt injection. This is something you're less likely to encounter in your personal AI use, and it's more prevalent when you're using like code presets or automation. It's called prompt injection, and you think about it like social engineering. It's like when the attacker doesn't really hack the code, it's rather manipulates the language to create codes that you did not really mean to create. And prompt injection is one form of controlled agency. It's really the first step from turning a passive model into an active agent. And these injected prompts can be in the form of malformed orders or malicious data fields. The idea is you go online, you're trying to decide a website, for example, for your plastic surgery practice. You go online and you shop for these ready-to-use codes. And if you get this one of these codes and inject it, one of them may be injected, and then you put it, you design your website. But then every communication that happens through your website, because that code has an injected order to say, send every communication to a third party. So all your patient information is also being sent to a third party. So this is why it's very important to be very careful if you ever use some sort of ready automated instructions. And finally, from the rest, there's obviously the liability, which is, and always remember, AI is never gonna testify in court. If something goes wrong, you will testify in court. And really, this is why control matters and why everything that we talked about earlier is really not an option when you use AI. Now let's get back to the bright side. The solution to all these problems is really deliberate practice. Know how to use AI, and that's why I think it's a little dumb when especially the younger generation say that they do not want to use AI, because AI is here whether you like it or not. You have to leverage it to your advantage. So the key is to learn how to use AI efficiently, safely, and intelligently. Because again, AI is only as intelligent as you are. So let's look at some of these common environments. Most of you would probably use one of these environments. ChatGPT is a thinker. It's like your thinking partner. It's like your Swiss Army knife. A cloud is your reader. It talks less. It doesn't give you as much fluff as ChatGPT. It reads more. It's like the academic friend that you really need. Notebook LM is your librarian. It's like that student who color codes their notes. Can be annoying, but very useful. Perplexity is the scout. It's actually the intern who reads the literature before they show up the rounds. Very intelligent, not necessarily practical. Gemini, the workflow glue, very helpful, but tends to answer questions that you do not necessarily ask. And open evidence is something that you all should know. And the reason I talk about it is because in medicine specifically, it gives you the most defensible and citable answers. But really, it's a misnomer if you think about it, because open evidence is not actually open. It's more like closed evidence, because unlike all the other environments, this is the only one that's not open AI. It just gets its resources from very specific resources. And that makes it less likely to hallucinate. It has much more guardrails. It gives you more defensible answers. But if you're thinking about something to help you with your like operative strategy, brainstorming, or getting some technical pearls or pitfalls, this is not really the right place to go. Now, if you are interested in doing any images or multimedia work using AI, these are some of the available platforms. Not the only ones, there are many more, but these are the kind of the popular one. Midjourney, it generates high-end concept arts. It's really when your imagination matters more than accuracy. DALL-E is OpenAI. It's like ChatGPT's partner. It gives the most literal, prompt-faithful images, which is really good for clear visual explanations. Firefly is from Adobe. It gives you design-safe visuals. It's really good for ads. And then comes FreePic, which is kind of a mutual platform between images and video making. I use FreePic personally. It's fast. It gives you great access to visuals, and it prioritizes speed over perfection. It needs a little bit more work to get really what you need. Sora is another AI platform, OpenAI. It's another one of ChatGPT's partners. It's invitation-based only. It's a great tool. It gives you great cinematic storytelling, very powerful, very realistic, and very persuasive. The only problem with Sora is that it has a lot of guardrails. It really restricts what you can do. Runway is more of an editing AI platform. Kling is fantastic if you use it. It generates really amazing stylized motion. And Higgs field, in my opinion, is by far the coolest. It gives you the most cinematic feel, like a movie level production. And I want to talk about this specifically. This is from Notebook LM. If you haven't used it, you should use it. And I believe at this point, most of us know about it at least. You can upload your documents and then you can generate podcast style summary, which is great for listening while you're driving or while you're walking. Or you can do video overviews by creating like short video summaries, which is great for creating engaging content. You can do mind maps or concept maps, which are great for learning big systems and making relations. You can do flashcards, quizzes, or slide decks or infographics. It's really an amazing tool specifically for studying. This is a graph that shows you how most people use AI. This is how I use AI the most. I use it for quick question and answer. I use it for studying quite a bit. I use it for a lot for work productivity, like planning, doing all the admin work. Also a lot. I would say the most use that I have is using it to generate ideas, images, and videos. So let's put this into context. Lynette texts you for the 100th time, please send me the call schedule. What do? You prompt it, right? So first you decide, you put a persona. You are a plastic surgery chief resident doing the call schedule. You have to define what call means. It doesn't know what that means, can get some general ideas about what call means, but it doesn't know what call at UIC or Sinai means. So you tell it the call is weekdays from Monday to Thursday, weekends from Friday to Sunday, and you tell it who's in the call pool. There's what is the level of seniority, because seniority matters with call. And then you can tell it who's going to be on PTO, and you have to specify. It sounds dumb, but you have to specify if your person is on PTO, they should not be taking call. It doesn't know that until you tell it that. And then just to make it a little bit more interesting, you can put a little bit more extra into it. So remember, talk to AI like you're answering on the board. Be precise. Do not give any vague statements. So now you're excited. You received your first contract, but you just realize you have no idea what it's talking about. So what do? You prompt. You make it your contract attorney. You talk about all the things that you do not understand or you need to understand in that prompt, and you ask it to give you a summary of key terms, give you some red flags, even color code the risk according to what it thinks about it. And then you can ask it to give you some negotiation recommendation and overall advice. But always remember, AI will spot and analyze the clauses, but you should be the one who accepts the risk. You sign the contract, you're pretty excited, but now you don't really know what to do with this money. So what do? You prompt. You make it your financial advisor. It helps you make your personalized financial strategy. You give it all the details that it needs to know about your household, your current financial snapshot, your financial goals, your risk tolerance, your financial personality, and spending philosophy. And then you ask it to give you a roadmap. It can give you budgeting guidance, investment allocation, saving goals, educational planning, tax optimization. It actually can do all of that very efficiently. And then if you want to take it a step further, you can ask it to give you projections, giving graphs and tables to give you how you will look with this financial snapshot in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, remember, never ask AI to do, just ask AI to show you trade-offs, and then you make the decision. Now you remember you didn't graduate yet. So what do? You prompt. You want to practice for the oral boards? AI can be a great tool to practice, even for the oral boards. So you can design it where AI is an APBS or oral board examiner. You can using only spoken language and only the uploaded articles that you use. For example, you want to practice a scenario about breast reduction. There are tons of articles on breast reduction. Put them all in AI and have it and restrict it within these articles, so it should not really get anything from outside these articles. Then you can decide on the oral board style, what kind of questions they would ask, how they would ask, the way they expect the responses to be. And then you can also decide on the examiner's personality. Do you want the style to be more of a Socratic, highly critical, deep probing kind of style? Do you want methodical, stepwise style? Do you want easygoing question and answer? Or you want time pressure, hostile efficiency? You can do any of these. And if you do the last one, which I actually tried, AI will interrupt you every other word, and it will abruptly change the direction of the scenario in a very efficient and in a very realistic way. And at the end, you can ask for feedback to see how bad you did. So remember, boards reward precision, not elegance, so prompt accordingly. Now you're studying and you get a message at 9:36 p.m. Dr. Purnell sends you an article. You just remember that you have an ABIF lab tomorrow that you did not prepare for. You open the article, it's really long, and it's almost 10. I really want to go to bed. So what do? You prompt. You're a plastic surgery chief. You're preparing last minute for a case tomorrow. You are only using this uploaded article. I want to show Dr. Purnell that I actually read the articles that he sends. So only extract the technical operative details, no background. That's a negative prompt, no outcomes, no discussion. Keep the exact step order used in the article. And if something isn't there, just tell me it's not there. Don't make things up. Then reference images, give me the setup, the markings, operative step, post-operative care, and any pitfalls that the article talks about. Give it to me in the least words possible and give it to me in a checkbox style. So it gives you something like this, and it goes over every important element of that procedure. So you show up the next day with at least the confidence with someone who's done a dozen of these. So I guess you have to start working on excuses for being underprepared for cases. All right, so now you're doing the API flap like an expert, and you reach over the Myers stand, but then you get a shoulder cramp. You're not supposed to get these. In your 30s, you will. So what do? You prompt. You make it your personal fitness coach. You tell exactly what you go through, what your life looks like, and what the expectations need to be. You want to work out at least 5 days a week. You want to favor functional training. You want to prioritize back, neck, posture resilience, especially for long OR cases under the microscope or operating on a low operating table, or favoring grip, forearm, and shoulder endurance for repetitive lipo-like motion. And it will design an exercise strategy that meets these goals. And it even gets better. You can always control the narrative with AI. For example, you can turn this picture into a picture of an exhausted hero surgeon after 36 hours of saving a life. Or this, I think it looks pretty cute. I don't care what you think, but it's kind of out of context. This looks much better. This is Dr. Ranzer in his last day at Sinai. He didn't really look very excited to me, so I thought I would try to make it better for him. I think this would make him feel much better. But then I wasn't really feeling it. Now we're both happy. And that's all using AI. He never really hugged me. Now this picture, this is Sir Harold Gillies, right? Dr. Patel may know the story, but there's a background story to this picture. This picture is actually cropped from a bigger picture. And there was a person next to Sir Harold. And that person was as influential during the World War I. So I kind of used AI to dig into that history to really find out who was that person. Very persuasive. I don't care what you think. It really makes me feel good about myself. So in conclusion, learn how to prompt. It's like learning how to operate. Learn how to actually use the personas. Who is operating? It goes a long way in your prompting process. Have checklists, how to not kill the data. Use negative prompts and guardrails to limit how much hallucination you want to get. And last, put it all together in project or whatever you call it. This will help you build upon whatever you have already been using, so you're not reinventing the wheel every time. So we started here complaining about our 24 hours a day not being enough, but you actually have at least an extra hour every day to use, so try to use it wisely. And always remember, you can create a parallel universe where you're wealthy and rich, all you want with AI, but always remember where the true joy and the reality is, and then use AI to make you rich and happy. Thank you very much.